The Love of My Life, a story about love after death. Written by Wade and Joanna Rich. The light through the windows was fading, and the room was beginning to darken. Helen lay in bed, unable to get up. She could feel her body shutting down, but it wasn't too surprising. She had lived a long life, and in many ways was ready to move on. But there was something that bothered her. Where will I go? How will I feel? She thought to herself. A tear moistened her eye as she realized the real question she wanted to ask. Will I have the love of my life? As soon as the question came to the surface, a beast came swooping down to swallow it. It was that monster, guilt, carrying with it that burdensome load of all she'd done wrong in her life. Those mistakes and sins brought about by her selfishness, ignorance, or greed. She wiped a tear from her cheek. The rejection of my life is more like it, she thought painfully. Her breathing had become ragged, and she was struggling to hang on. It felt like she was on a conveyor belt to judgment she wasn't ready for, and would never be ready for. She unconsciously grabbed the coin that hung from her necklace Henry had given to her just a week before his passing. She didn't really know why she always grabbed it when she felt afraid. It's not like it really comforted her. Her mind went back to the day when he tossed a grocery sack in her lap and sat down on the couch next to her. He always gave her gifts in this brutish way to hide a little bit from how much she really meant to him. She opened it casually, finding a necklace with a decorative coin hanging from it. She didn't understand, but appreciated its beauty. He gave her some explanation that it meant he would always be with her. However, he passed away only a week later, which seemed like such a cruel thing to do. Many times, when the pain of loss and rejection were at its peak, she would rip the coin off in anger, throw it away, and then fall to her knees crying, "You left me. You lied to me, and you left me." When all her energy was finally exhausted, she would eventually go back and pull it out of the trash again. For the next little while, the fear of death seemed to come and go until finally she felt like she had fallen asleep. When she awoke, it was odd, because she was standing next to her bed, looking at an elderly lady lying there, motionless. It took a moment to realize she was looking at her body, and that it was no longer her. She felt oddly disconnected from it. Then she noticed a man standing next to her. "Hello, Helen," he said with a broad smile that confused her. At the same time, she noticed the background began to fade from that of her former bedroom to a gray backdrop that felt like a space of neutrality. She stared at him blankly. His expression fell a bit, and then he continued, "My name is Christopher. I'm here to greet you and serve as your guide to the life premiere." "Life premiere?" she asked anxiously. "You mean judgment?" Christopher cleared his throat and clarified. "Well, no, it's not judgment in the way you're probably thinking. It's more about helping you discover who you really are." This in no way made Helen feel better, and she began to look around as if trying to find a way out. She turned and began walking away. "Helen, let me try to explain this better," he asked as he followed her. "Let me guess. There's a massive screen where my entire life is played out like a movie for everyone to watch and see every single choice I ever made, right?" Christopher frowned and replied, "Well, yes, that's actually pretty close." A squeak of fear escaped Helen, and she began to move more quickly. "Helen, please, I don't mean to scare you. I swear it's not what you fear. It just helps you remember your true nature," he pled. "Look, I know who I am, and I don't need to be judged. Don't you think I already know what I've done? I don't need for anyone else to see it. I don't want to go. I don't want to do it," Helen said desperately as tears began to run down her face. Christopher's heart was softened, and he replied, "Helen, you don't have to go. You don't have to do anything you don't want to." She stopped and looked at him with hope. "Is that really true?" "Yes. You are free here, just as you were in life. No one can make you do anything." Helen took a deep breath and asked warily, "So I can just skip the judgment part then?" "Well, yes, but like I said, it's not about judgment." "Oh, yes, in that case, I want to skip it," she said with relief, wiping a tear from her cheek. But then she thought of something else and her face fell. "But then I won't know where I'm supposed to go, heaven or hell." "Well, like I said, you can go wherever you want, but—" "Okay, in that case, I want to go to heaven," she said hopefully. "Well, there's something you need to understand first. Heaven isn't what you think it is," Christopher started. Helen became nervous and agitated at his hesitancy. "What are you trying to say? That I'm not worthy?" Helen asked anxiously. No, it's not that at all. It's complicated, but yet not complicated." Christopher was getting frustrated at his inability to communicate. Helen was feeling desperate to get to heaven and demanded, "Christopher, I said I want to go to heaven right now." Christopher sighed. "All right then, I will take you to heaven." Helen let out a sigh of relief and felt a renewed hope. The background started to shimmer and flex until it coalesced from gray to white, where they stood before a set of pearlescent gates which opened willingly for her. She smiled in relief and started walking anxiously down the main street of gold. Helen observed the other seemingly happy heavenites making their way to and fro. "Okay, so which way is it?" she asked. Christopher was confused by the question. "You know, my heavenly home, my mansion," she clarified. "Oh, yes. Well, it's this way." He guided her down a road that ended before a beautiful structure. "This is it," he confirmed. She smiled and ran inside, immediately looking through all the rooms. She ran upstairs and down from one to the next. After some time, her excitement began to fade, and the more she searched, the more anxious she became, until finally, after inspecting the last room, her attitude took a massive plunge to complete devastation. "What's wrong?" asked Christopher. Helen's eyes filled with tears, and she sealed her lips. She shook her head and ran out of the house. "Helen, wait!" Christopher cried. He followed her, racing through the streets of heaven in a flurry of tears and muffled cries. She didn't stop until she reached the gates again. Christopher finally caught up and asked, "Helen, what's wrong? What happened?" She was crying the tears of a broken soul, shaking her head in refusal to speak. Whatever had happened was too painful to utter. Mentally, she was back in life, ripping the coin off of her neck and throwing it in the trash, but this time it was forever. "Helen, I'm so sorry. I tried to explain that it might not make sense without the life premiere. So please trust me. It will help you make sense of all of this." "No," she cried. "No. I now have my answer, and I most definitely don't want to go to judgment now. How dare you even suggest it? What and who are you, really? Do you get some sort of satisfaction from watching souls being broken? I already know the answer about who I am, and you let me walk right into that one, didn't you?" She sobbed again, her soul shattered. Helen, I'm so sorry. No, I would never want to see you broken. I care about you more than you know. Helen continued to cry. When she was finally able to catch her breath as the pain subsided, and with all the courage she could muster, she said, I'm ready now. You can take me to hell. Helen, wait, Christopher pled. Christopher, if you claim to care about me, you won't dare suggest judgment again, she said, looking him fiercely in the eyes. Christopher sighed, and his shoulders fell in surrender. Okay, Helen, I'll take you. The background began to flutter and fade again, this time from gray to black. The first thing she heard was the sound of a woman crying, then a man, then more and more voices until it was a cacophony of tortured souls. Helen and Christopher walked quietly through the rows of beings huddled in pain. After several moments of this, Christopher finally asked in a whisper, So, what are you feeling? I don't know, Helen said. She stopped in a particularly dark place and turned to Christopher and said, You can leave me now. Thank you for being my guide. Christopher was silent as Helen turned and dropped to her knees. She thought back to her life and all the things she'd done wrong, the things that had always weighed her down. She tried to accept that those things were so bad that she was now supposed to feel bad about it for all of eternity. I'm undeserving and unworthy of love, she thought, trying to let it sink deep into her soul. She unconsciously surrendered to judgment, which triggered something. She heard a voice. It was hers, but it came from outside of her. She looked up as a dimly lit scene played out all around. It was her, in a dark moment, sinning. That monster she'd always kept hid was now playing out for all to see. The other darkened souls around her stopped crying to look up. She felt a surge of panic and searing pain sting her soul. She wanted to stop it, but also she wanted to drown in it and face it all, once and for all. And there it was, for all to see and condemn. She closed her eyes and covered her face, huddled up, and the ultimate paradox of trying to hide whilst being seen by all that is. A moment passed like an eternity as she waited for what came next. But all she heard was silence. Then, despite her cover-up, she noticed that there was a light that was seeping through her hands. She pulled them away slightly and noticed that something was changing. The other souls in hell were all quietly watching her mistakes play out. All the weeping and wailing had stopped. And then, oddly, she felt a feeling that was undeniable: reverence. As she accepted this, she began to feel a strange connection to everyone around her. And her greatest mistakes were not met with judgment or negativity. In fact, there was a warm light surrounding her in those moments that seemed to comfort everyone watching. There was this weird unison occurring, and everyone that felt judged now felt understood. The one thing that Helen thought separated her from everything else was actually the common thread they all shared: the feeling that they weren't deserving of love, the rejection of their life. The fact that she decided to share that with all around suddenly brought her into a special connection that she recognized as acceptance and love. She turned to a lady nearest her who'd previously been crying the sobs of a soul hopelessly lost. She looked into Helen's eyes deeply, and then took a step towards her and embraced her, whispering in her ear, "Thank you." Helen then experienced this as the collective of hell embraced her and thanked her for being brave enough to share her fears. It had an incredible healing effect upon them all. She looked back at the show still playing out with a new perspective that was a shocking contrast to how she'd ever seen herself. But there it was on the screen in undeniable beauty. She wasn't some terrible thing that was undeserving of love. She was precious love itself. And her love had just healed all the inhabitants of hell. This new perspective seemed to shift the entire universe instantly. She turned to Christopher, who was still standing there, never having left her side, and gasped, "Henry?" Christopher smiled, and then was mauled by her exuberant embrace. When he caught his breath, he whispered to her, "My dearest Victoria." With that, she pulled back to look at him curiously and repeated the name, "Victoria." Her face lit up at the remembrance of the name of her soul. Her eyes rolled slowly around as she let memory of her soul life start to seep in. Then she slapped his chest playfully and cried, "Why didn't you tell me?" "I wanted to," Christopher started, "but when you didn't recognize me, I knew you still saw through earthly eyes, and I had to get you to the life premiere before you'd be able to see. You were there waiting for me when I died," she said in wonder. "I was there long before that," Christopher said defensively. "Look, right there." He pointed to a scene that started to play. It was the time when Helen had ripped her necklace off, thrown it in the trash, and dropped to her knees, sobbing in what she thought was utter aloneness. But then she saw Christopher there, holding her, loving her, soothing her. She could see that's what made her feel better. It wasn't because she had cried. It was because his soul had comforted her in a way she didn't know was possible. In fact, she could see that she wasn't actually crying because she missed him. Each time she felt that feeling of missing him, it was just a misunderstanding of the fact that it was him being especially close to her in that moment. Then she suddenly realized something. She saw them as connected by the energy of love in a way that was inseparable. "The coin! We are the coin!" she gasped. Christopher smiled. "Yes, two sides of one relationship forever joined. That's what I told you. A coin can't exist with only one side. Universal law says that there must always be two. So without you, there is no me." Victoria smiled. "Gosh, I wish I had understood all this when I was there." "But that would have taken all the adventure out of it," Christopher teased. Then he pointed to the screen again. "Look, it's my favorite part." Victoria looked back. It was when she first met Henry. "You were already crazy about me," he said confidently. "I was not," she replied defensively. Then, "Well, yeah, you're right. I was crazy about you." They stood together watching her life play out on a screen the size of the universe. She had the thought, this is why eternity is a never-ending blank canvas, so that each life can be played out in all its beauty for the rest of the body of God to treasure. And that's just what was happening. She became aware of every soul and intelligence of God there with them watching. But instead of the judgment she expected to feel, she was the star of the premiere show of her life, and all of eternity had impatiently waited for this moment to share it with her. Funny we think we can hide our lives. They've always been watching. They've seen every moment. Now is when you finally get to realize that you've been watched and loved and accepted every step of the way, Christopher smiled. Victoria marveled at the feeling. Her life experience was the greatest treasure of heaven. And what a beautiful life it was, full of adventure, fear, pain, suffering, loss, courage, and every form of love. How proud she felt that she did all of that, all that was playing out, especially the time near the end when Henry left her to shine most brightly of all. She was a single parent, grandparent, and great-grandparent, feeling completely helpless as all of her offspring experienced every sort of tragedy. And all she could do was sit there and listen to them cry. But that was the most beautiful part. She was there. She never left. She never gave up, no matter how scary or traumatic the scene. She held their hands, each and every one of them, and was of more comfort than she ever could have imagined. I can't believe this feeling I'm experiencing right now, she said in wonder. I know. The love of your life, right? Christopher smiled. Victoria looked back at him in wonder and remarked, Oh, wow. Yes, that's it. That's exactly what I'm feeling. The love of my life.